Volume detected. Recording on. Spath, we got a new series of rental decks. I'm going to take a little look at them. My expectations are a little lower this time, half because this is a half expansion, so there's not as many cards, new cards to make decks around, and half because I kind of realize now, well, this is kind of playing into the first half, they use pretty much almost exclusively cards from the new expansion, which is actually, it can be very difficult to make a deck using only the new cards. Like, for example, the new fire cards from this expansion was just Houndour, Houndoom, and T-Tran. So you can't easily make a fire deck using those three, and I actually scrolled down a little bit and saw they did in fact make a fire deck using those three, so I imagine there's going to be a whole bunch of colorless mons and stuff in there too. So I understand the limitations they're working with here to try and make decks using only the new cards, and so I'll talk a little bit about the cards you could run instead, just to make the deck a little bit more usable in a competitive sense, I suppose. Anyway, let's get right into it. We don't have, how many do we have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Actually, we have quite a lot. I wonder if there's going to be one for, what was that last one? It was like a legendaries one. I guess that's going to be like the Dalgapalkia Centaur forms or something. It'd be funny if Giratina, if they made like a Giratina deck, because I honestly cannot tell what the devs wanted you to do with Giratina. So maybe that'll show us. But there's not really any other cards in this expansion that'll work well in a grass psychic, besides like, you know, Ghost Rotom or something. Anyway, our grass one, we got Heracross with no berry. We got Burmy and Mothim. So they didn't introduce a new Wormadam in this expansion. I think if you're running Burmy, you would probably consider running Wormadam. But Mothim is the other evolution to Burmy, so, you know, they got it. This is a grass deck, so grass Burmy makes a lot of sense. Combi and the new Vespiquen. I've been seeing, one of the reasons I waited a little bit to make this video is because I want to kind of figure out what the good cards were and how they were all used and stuff. I don't want to just make a video it's like, oh, you should make this deck into this, this, and this, when I don't even have any experience with the cards. I still haven't seen anyone using this card. I think it's actually probably decent. It's very similar to the Staraptor that you can play with Berry, the double-edged Staraptor. That one is better. It's worse because it's a stage 2, but it's better because you can attack with 1 energy using Berry, and because the evolutions are not as vulnerable on the way up, I guess. Combi has 20 damage and 50 HP. It's not very good. It also, I think, does slightly higher damage, and it definitely has more HP. But I think that 120 damage is not a joke. It's quite a lot for 3 energies, and this card does work for, you can use Erica with this card, so you can potentially heal it, both in the damage it takes getting up to 3 energies, and then the damage you do to yourself. So I think this is actually probably a decent card. You would probably run it in a deck with Erica, and the other Combi. Like, this is using the Combi that just does damage with its little bug bite, but I would probably run it with the draw effect Combi. But I think you probably could have those in a deck. I don't know what we're doing with Mothim. I think this is probably a card that you would not use in a grass deck, believe it or not. You could maybe just chuck this into a, well, I don't know. I don't know if I'd ever use this card in any deck. 50 damage for 2 energies is not horrible, but it's not great. Like, there are cards that do 70 damage for 2 energies. The whole appeal of this is that it's colorless, but again, grass is one of those energies. It doesn't really help you hit that much. Certain fighting types and certain dark types, and that's it. I don't know. Most people don't really need that kind of coverage. Like, what are you hitting? You're going to kill Sneasel in 1 hit with your Gust? I mean, yeah, you are. But how often do you need to hit Sneasel that hard, that fast? I think that Heracross is a decent card if you're running Berry. I don't think it's great. 50 damage is no joke, and the thing is, if you have even a single Berry, which is quite common, you can attack a turn early. Or, you know, up to 2 turns early. And if you have both berries, you know, you can just attack continuously until you have 3 energies on it organically. But, you know, 100 HP, this thing's, it's gonna get killed. It's not like it's just gonna live forever or anything like that. Probably you're not gonna get 3 attacks off with it, but this can be an insanely disruptive card in the early game. At worst, it's doing the same amount of work. What's that, Mon? Carnivine is. You got the 50 damage per hit that relies on one other card being in your hand. But Carnivine can do it infinitely as long as you have the Arceus, and then the Arceus can then do some work on its own later. Whereas this guy needs Berry, and the berries are used up. So, well, he doesn't need Berry, but he needs Berry for the first few energies. But like, you've got to keep on sticking energies onto it if you were planning on using its attack without Berry. Whereas, you know, Carnivine is just there until it's dead. So I think this is a worse version of Carnivine, but I think it's not horrible. There are very few rushdown grass cards if you think about it. And Carnivine is the best one, but this is like one of the only other ones. Most grass types need quite a lot of investment, either energy or else. Anyway, not a bad card, but I would run it in a berry deck. We have the Cherrim and Cherubi. I haven't seen anyone use these cards. Leafage, sure, right? Completely ordinary card, apart from the 50 HP, which is not very good. Both of these are, I think, okay. 40 damage is pretty weak, but only 1 energy is pretty good, and Confusion is quite disruptive. I think of the various 40 damage 1 energy evolution cards in the game, this is actually one of the better ones. I'll take the 80 HP for the Confusion effect. I think that's a nice trade. This one offers some stall capabilities, just a little bit. If you can disrupt the opponent's turn and their ability to kill you, you know, that's quite helpful. Or if you can force them to switch out and they have to burn some energies, that can give you a big leg up in the match. I think this is... I didn't think originally this was the better of the two Cherrims, but now I think it is. 60 damage is quite nice. For 2 energies even, is still quite nice. 20 damage healed is, you know, it adds up. The problem with this is that it's really good against most basics in the game, but then the nanosecond something evolved or something EX sits in front of you, you're probably just going to get owned in a heartbeat. But this is a... It's a very small spot in a game where this is a good card. You know, it's like... On turn 1, it's you don't have enough energy to use its attacks, or turn 3 rather, when you can first evolve it. It's good if you go second, if you get your first attack with Cherrim and then the opponent doesn't kill you and then you evolve and use your lead sheet or whatever, and maybe you do 80 damage across your 2 hits, plus heal the 20 damage they just hit you with. Something like that can be good. But the problem is if you're going first, it's not a very good card, and then the nanosecond you start getting into like turn 8, turn 9 area, this is usually pretty underwhelming compared to some of the cards that start coming up once 3 energies or 4 energies are on the table. So I kind of like the other Cherrim more, and they are competing for a deck slot. So I would be running them, maybe. Well, their purpose is to kind of stall, and that makes sense if you've got cards in the back that you can start putting energies on, such as this Vespiquen is actually a very good example. These two have a little bit of synergy together. The Cherubi and the Cherrim, and then you're using the Worry Seed, and you're trying to get extra turns with your Confusion, and just, you know, wear things down with your 40 damage hits. Meanwhile, the extra energies, because you only need 1 energy for Cherrim, you're putting it onto your Combi, trying to get that Vespiquen in. So 2 Vespiquen would make this deck better. I would kill the Mothim, it's not doing anything. Heracross can stay if you have Berry. That has some kind of synergy. But all that synergy goes out the window the nanosecond you look at Leafeon, because this is like a gazillion times better thing to lead with, and you really want to have high energy Mons to justify this thing's presence. I think this is probably the best of the new EX cards. What are they? Probopass, this, Glaceon, Garchomp. What's the other one? Oh, we'll see it in a little bit. This guy's left a pretty strong impression on me. I think this is quite a good little card. Oh, Arceus. Arceus is the best by far. Okay, never mind. Arceus is no question. It's like the best EX card in the game. It's just a straight up the best. It's the best card in the game. This guy, I actually really like this card. It's an alternative to grass decks were being made a very specific way prior to this expansion, and this expansion made 2 really strong new ways of making grass decks. So previously, a lot of them, it was all Executor to lead, and using Executor's excellent wall capabilities and its very decent offensive presence, Executor EX, to kind of wear things down and get a kill and then set up something in the back, because Executor only needs 1 energy. You set up something in the back like a Celebi or a Yanmega or a Superior plus Celebi or you know, something like that. Some big thing that you can just kill the opponent with while your Executor is just getting worn down and you have all these extra turns to put on energies. That was quite a good system. Executor was quite a good mon. But they've kind of successfully introduced 2 new concepts that don't work with Executor that are still strong in grass decks. One of them is that Carnivine, where you're doing early game 50 damage per hit, which is very nice, powerful damage, especially if you got like a Giovanni or something like that and you can just one-shot basics. Being able to throw up the turn 2, turn 3, 50 damage Carnivine hits with the Arceus that you can then set up in the back while your Carnivine is just bonking things. or even a second Carnivine, you know, that's very powerful. But that shines in the early game, and Executor also shines in the early game. So you're doing one or the other. Having a late game Carnivine is not so good. And then this guy has a very kind of similar role to it kind of rolls Superior and Executor into one thing. It's not as good as what either of them does, but it's doing both of their jobs at once. So Executor has 160 HP and is very, you know, is hitting for 40 to 60 damage average on the first turn it can attack. This guy can attack on the second turn he's out because of Forest Breath. Don't listen to the 3 energies. He gives one to himself. And then he also has Superior's role of doubling your energy output per turn. It's not as extreme as Superior, because Superior's works retroactively. And this guy's only works when he's on the lead spot. And because of that, he's also fighting for the lead spot from Executor and from Carnivine. Going into from Executor into this is not so powerful, because, like, this thing's damage output is not crazy. 70 damage is okay for effectively 2 energies. So there's no point in setting this up in your Executor bench when you can have something much stronger coming in later. But this guy, if you're leading with it, you know, you have almost as much as HP as Executor does, and you're also, once you get the energy on it yourself, you're sticking extra energies. You're putting like 2 energies per turn on something like a Celebi or something like that. This guy with a Rocky Helmet or a Cape and then just, you know, using all that extra energy you generate to set up a new bench mon. I think this is a really fantastic card, basically. The deck doesn't have too much synergy with it. The 2 abusers, I guess, are Heracross and Vespiquen. So this deck is using Heracross like a late game mon. The problem is Heracross is going to be doing 50 damage 75% of the time. So that's not a very good late game card to build into. And then, you know, once your Leafeon dies and your Heracross dies, you lose because Leafeon counts as 2. So this is a better early game card using Berry than it is a late game card. So there's not great synergy there. And then Vespiquen, that synergy is decent, I think. But your Combi, there's a good chance you're going to be leading on your Combi rather than you're going to be forced to lead on Combi if you're doing like a Combi Eevee team. And Combi and Eevee are not amazing, you know, leads. You got to evolve them as soon as possible for them to not just die. And this is not a card you want to evolve as soon as possible, since it has 2 retreat cost and not even that much HP. You would have different abusers with Leafeon, probably. Like, Yanmega is one. Arceus cannot receive Grass Energies. What would you put Grass Energies on? Celebi is the really obvious one. I've done Leafeon and Celebi, and that's quite effective. Yanmega is another relatively obvious one. You know, anything that can just benefit from having a lot of Grass Energies on it. Executor, the Island Executor, is a very good receiver. That thing does quite a lot of damage, but needs 4 energies to activate. This guy can do that. He can facilitate that kind of plan. I think it's the wrong allies for Leafeon, but this deck is not horrible. I would kill the Burmy Mothim. I would put Berry in the deck or something. I would turn this Cherrim into the other Cherrim, and another Leafeon or something like that. I think this deck is okay. I would have Erika's and like other utility cards, and I would kill something here. Probably the Heracross and the Berry. But this kind of deck, it's like, it could work. Oh, I guess Tangrowth is another thing you could be building up with the Leafeon. I did make a deck like that, but I haven't actually tried to use it online. But I have like a Leafeon Tangrowth deck that's kind of funny. This one's okay. I'm going to give this one like a 7, okay? It's not horrible, but it could be a lot better with very minor changes. Okay, so we got the fire one. That took quite a while. I'm going to be a little bit faster. I spent too long on the grass ones. Whoa. Yeah, so we got all 3 of the fire types of this expansion. What works well with Houndoom? I used the Arbok for a really long time. I liked Sabrina with it, because you can force the opponent into something that's not really ready to come out yet, and then trap it in. So I already know this deck isn't using Sabrina, because it's not a new card. I think that Houndoom is probably a little bit better than Arbok, especially with the reduction in Psychic type decks online these days. I have 2 of that one. That's cool. What appreciates the opponent being trapped in here? Kind of nothing. We've got some kind of high retreat cost Mons, don't we? We've got the 2 Arceus, which I think are both retreat cost 2. We got Heatran, which is free retreat cost once you get Arceus in. Same with Rotom. Snorlax is retreat cost 4. Starly's only 1. These guys are 1 and 2, I think, yeah. You often have to, like, I mean, you can just hit things repeatedly with Corner. It's not like that doesn't work. 60, 120, 180. Usually 2 hits of corner is enough to kill most things, but it's really nice if you can hit something with corner, then retreat out and bonk it with something even stronger. And there are some even strongers in this deck. There's like Staraptor's Bravebird, there's Arceus's Final Light, whatever it's called, Ultimate Force. You got the Snorlax Collapse. The problem is all these are extremely energy hungry. Like you got to get 2 energies on your Houndoom, then you got to get what 2 energies on your 3 energies on your Arceus, or 4 energies on your other Arceus, 3 energies on your Staraptor. It's like a joke that we have Snorlax and Staraptor in the same deck with no berry. Like this deck is begging for berry. Instead, we have a random Celestic Town Elder. What's that doing there? I do appreciate. I know that they don't want to put 2 Arceus EX in the deck, so they're just using 1 of each. So that this is like a budget deck for people who don't have 2 EX. You should never run the normal one. Never's a bit strong, but the normal one is. Its main claim to fame is that it enables the link cards, and Arceus EX also does that while being a much better card in and of itself. No synergy in this deck, I feel. The chip shots with Rotom, that's kind of interesting, and then you can Cyrus the opponent in and corner them, maybe. But we don't have Cyrus. Like, without Cyrus, this Rotom is basically useless. I like a Poketool a lot if you're running Heatran. I like Poketools a lot if you're running Snorlax. No Poketools in this deck. This one is... I already think the Houndour and Houndoom, they don't really have... I looked at Fire decks using those two, and they don't really seem to have that many good allies. I think you do have to kind of run them with colorless mons. But I don't know if there's a good way to build a deck with these two yet, even though I think they're not horrible cards in a vacuum. They don't have the right team. But this is definitely the wrong team. This is, in my opinion, this is a pretty bad deck. Everything is just needs way too much energy. There's no way to... Everything is too energy hungry, 2 energy, 4 energy because you got no berry, 3 energy, 3 energy. You're just not going to have time to build that up, especially in Fire where there's no energy acceleration. It's just a mess. This is a messy deck. This is like a 3. This is not even... There's nothing you can even do with this, I feel. Glaceon, I've barely seen anyone try and use Glaceon decks. The ones who I have seen, they're using other evolutions in the same deck. So they'll have like an island... They'll have like 2 Island Vaporeons and then the random Glaceon EX just in case they need that damage output. Or like a regular Glaceon plus Glaceon EX I've seen. Let's take a look here. We got Meryl Azumarill. I haven't seen anyone use these 2 cards. It's not horrible, it's not great. It's kind of... it feels like a waste of 2 energies to put him on this guy. So like 60 damage isn't bad. If they were going to make it like Azumarill in the video game, they should have just given it like... They should have just given it like 100 damage and said, screw it. I understand why they didn't do that, though. Barely. I don't think I've ever seen anyone use Frostlass. It's not horrible. It's really good with Cyrus, but I think we're not using Cyrus in this deck. We are using Arita. That's kind of cool. Kind of a lot of early game cards. I like the concept of getting some chip off with Frostlass and then getting some chip off with Glaceon plus Glaceon's strong attack. I guess Frostlass does technically kind of help Glaceon's breakpoints later on. This looks like a late game Glaceon kind of deck. But what are you supposed to do? You put your 1 to 2 energies. Nothing kind of allows you to build up benched mons. Everything needs energies every turn. You know what I mean? You need 1 for the Meryl, another 1 for the Azumarill, 1 for the Snorlax, another 1 for the Frostlass. It's going to be hard to build up the Glaceon in the back or the Palkia in the back because you're just constantly sticking energies on the mons that need to attack while they're out. It's nice to have a mon that has a relatively low energy cost that you can kind of lead with and then put your extra energy somewhere else, or to have energy acceleration. So a really obvious thing you could do in a deck with a Glaceon is just have Manaphy, But then of all the things Manaphy can be giving energy to, Glaceon is not it. It should be like an Articuno or a Palkia or any of the colorless mons that appreciate energy, such as Arceus, stuff like that. Like, what are you doing giving it to Glaceon? I do like Arita. Arita's nice. Glaceon's doing what in the 3 energies, 100 damage because of the snow damage. It's not horrible. It's just, I don't know. You could do better. Like Starmie's doing that for 2 and has like no retreat cost. I don't know. It's kind of good. Starmie has a bit less HP, I guess. Weakness to metal is kind of cool. I will say that. Metal is not. Well, you know, it's kind of cool. You know, people actually do run metal decks now. In fact, metal deck is the most common type, but the early you're not usually ending on the. It's usually the early game mons are using metal type attacks, and the late game mons are not. I've never seen anyone use Hit or Noctowl. It's kind of a novel effect. I'm not gonna say it's horrible. It's not great. It's not super helpful. Arita is nice just to get you a little bit of HP back, but I feel like you're not going to be retreating too much with this deck because you don't have that much spare energy, and you don't have any. Even if you have even if you are retreating, you're going to be discarding the energies from the mons that are switching out. So like Arita might not even necessarily heal them, you know, because you need an energy on something to heal it with Arita. It's my one rare Arita. It's quite nice. I like it. The potion plus the Arita is a bit goofy. I think X speeds would have been nice in this deck with the Arita. I think the Noctowl and the Hoot Hoot are doing nothing. They shouldn't even be here. You've got the I would really appreciate either Misty or Manaphy or something to get energies on a little faster if you're going to be running stuff like Glaceon or Palkia. I mean, well, yes, Palkia, but not this Palkia. Not the other Palkia, rather this Palkia. I think this is not a horrible card. People have been using this online. That effect is quite good if you get the heads, and still not horrible if you get the tails. This is like a 6, maybe a 5. This is a 5 or 6 deck. It's not horrible, but it could be a lot better with relatively simple changes. I made a deck using the new Raichu. I like it a lot. This is not very much like my deck at all. I do have the... Okay, so our last one didn't even have the... Our new water card with the Arceus Link is Abomasnow, and we're not even using Abomasnow in this new one. It's kind of sad. I guess they didn't want every single deck to be an Arceus deck. But a lot of the new Pokemon, like... a lot of the new types only have, like, the Arceus Link and not much else, like Fire. Electrike and Manectric are kind of here to stall. Not that one. Okay, this one is here to stall. 40 damage for 1 energy, plus a 50-50 chance of canceling your opponent's next attack. That's kind of to buy you time in the early game. The problem is Electric really doesn't benefit from this. This is the wrong... It has the wrong allies. There isn't an Electric card that's like a big setup sweeper. They're all like middle game cards. Pachirisu is middle game. Pikachu is middle game. Zapdos is kind of middle to late. That's one of the latest ones. I guess technically, like, Magnezone is kind of, as soon as you can get it onto the field, it's a good card. It's good in the middle game and the late game. But you don't really need help stalling to get Magnezone set up. That's the whole point. It sets itself up. You just need other mons to kind of, like, fight. And then the Magnezone is already ready by the end of the game. You don't need to waste time like this. You don't benefit from having a Magnezone with 10 energies versus 3. Not only that, but Raichu is also occupying that space where its role is to stall. This thing takes 30 less damage once Arceus is on the field. And this is a really crazy card at specific roles. Like, it's quite hilarious when you're fighting a Dialga, and it's doing its Metallic Turbo that does 30 damage plus puts 2 energies on the field, and this guy takes 0 from it, you know? Meanwhile, you're getting, like, nice chip damage on everything. That's just really disruptive for the opponent. Or like Palkia EX Punch does like 0 damage slash, does 0 damage to this guy. When it's fighting particular decks, this card is a fiend. It's really good against the 18 trainer water decks with the Articuno or the Palkia. It's just very obnoxious against them as long as they don't get a gazillion Misty Heads, because they can barely touch it until they've got a lot of energies. And meanwhile, it's doing super effective damage to them. I think it's very underwhelming against a lot of other decks. But the point is, this is a good early game card to stall while you're setting up something in the back, such as an Arceus. And we do have an Arceus here. And then this is also a good early game card to stall. But, like, both of these are just giving you time to attach energies to what? To your Arceus and your Arceus EX? It's not horrible, but they have a redundant role, and it feels like there should be something else in there. I think Electric is just really missing. I think it's by design. I think they deliberately did this with Electric. It's missing like a big mon with a lot of HP in the back that's going to win. It's missing a win con, I feel. The closest is Magnezone, and that's not, you know, that's... you kind of don't care if your Magnezone dies, because it's only a knockout point of 1. And you don't need to stall to set it up. I hate seeing Snorlax on a deck that doesn't have Berry. I think Rotom's chip shots are irrelevant if you don't have Cyrus. I think Raichu is also much better in a deck with Cyrus. I don't think Manectric is bad, but... Well, I think it's bad right now, but it could be good if the right allies come in, and the right allies do not presently exist in the game. Hoot Hoot and Noctowl are doing nothing here. They shouldn't be here. I have an electric deck. It's using Luxray. This Raichu plus Arceus plus Luxray. And I actually think that's very good. And then Volkner, of course. Because you often... The Raichu is the early game card that's doing chip shots for 40 damage on the lead Pokemon, 20 damage on the benched mons. That really helps Luxray get its kills later on. And the stalling helps Luxray successfully get onto the field because it's a stage 2. And then once this dies, you usually lose 2 energies because, you know, you put 2 energies on it to use Spark. And that sets up Volkner to be able to draw 2 energies from the discard pile. So the synergy between this Raichu and Volkner and Luxray is very strong. And that's how I think that's the most effective way to use this Raichu that I've seen so far. I've done a few different decks with this card. I think it's not horrible. I think it's not good. But if you do something like that, that's the closest it's going to be to being good. And then the idea is you just, you know, build up energy. After the initial 2, you build up energy on the Arceus instead. And then the Luxray can just pull its own energies once you have Volkner. You could build up a Luxray instead, but, you know, Luxray has free retreat cost too, so you can just go into anytime Raichu dies, and if you don't draw the Volkner you need, you can just retreat into the Arceus and start attacking with that. You know, you got a little bit of freedom. So Hoot Hoot Noctowl, I would kill them. Snorlax has absolutely no business here. Rotom has no business here. Manectric has no business here. Chuck in the Shinx line. Chuck in Cyrus or something. Well, Cyrus is not so necessary if you're using the Luxray version, because Luxray can already just attack anything. But it depends on what kind of allies you have. Cyrus is very helpful for Arceus, for example. If you get a little bit of chip damage on stuff with Pikachu, Raichu, and then Cyrus pulls them in for Arceus to own later on. It can be very nice. This one's like a 7 as well. This is not horrible, but it could be a lot better very easily. No, this is like a 5. I take it back. The decks I was describing were only like 8s and 9s. We got Garchomp, Sudowoodo, Phanpy, and Donphan. I'm a big fan of Phanpy a lot in terms of design. I like the idea of Donphan. It's just a worse version of Togekiss. I know Togekiss has the extra evolutionary stage, which is really bad. It adds deck space and removes consistency. But Cynthia makes it a much better card. Being able to hit 110 off the gate and then 170 later on is just insanely powerful. And you really feel like you're missing that with Donphan. Additionally, it takes an extra energy to attack. Having to spend... Like, Sudowoodo is a good ally with Donphan because you only have to put the 1 energy on Sudowoodo and then you're just building up the Donphan for every turn after that. That makes sense. I guess Medicham also makes sense. This is a good card if you're lucky. If you're feeling like... If you flip a lot of heads, if you, like, go into the casino, this is a good card for you. 80 damage per turn is absolutely insane. It's just usually not going to happen. And when you look at the average damage being only 40, like, that's pretty normal for 1 energy for an evolution card. It's just very inconsistent. That's the only thing. It's an inconsistent version of other existing cards like Clefable or Rapidash. But both of those activating so quickly is very good for Donphan. And even Garchomp activating so quickly is very good for Donphan. You will have extra turns that you can just stick energies on your Donphan. But in my experience using Donphan decks, that guy... It is very hard to actually get the 3 energies on him and get him to come out and use his attack twice, which is like the whole point of it, is that the second attack is very powerful, and all future attacks. So you really want to get this guy all set up, have him come out, and then just do rolling spin as much as you can before you die. You want nothing to be able to upset that. And that's just not very practical most of the time. It might be forced in too early, or you know, the opponent might Sabrina or Cyrus after you've already got it out and used your rolling spin once, and that resets your counter. This is not a great fighting card. And the allies here are okay with it, but you could have much better kind of fighting decks using just a lot of assorted cards instead of these guys. Marshadow would be easy to just chuck into this deck. Lucario would be easy to chuck into this deck and just like power up all the other guys. I do like the Sudowoodo. I think he belongs here. He's good. I think Sudowoodo, Garchomp is a core you can do, but the Donphan is the wrong ally and the Meditite is the wrong ally. I would be putting stuff like Hitmonlee and Cyrus in there instead of those idiots. Shaman is kind of novel. We've got Sudowoodo, which actually retreats for 2. I never noticed that. Once he's out, he's kind of trapped in a little bit. Phanpy also retreats for 2. Okay, so Shaman feels very necessary here, but actually it's just awkward how high retreat cost is for everything in this deck. Gibble's only 1. Meditite's only 1. I guess Shaman feels a little necessary. It'd be nice to have Leaf, I guess. You've got too many cards in this deck The Meditite, you'd appreciate more like basics, I guess. I mean, you have a lot of basics, but like I don't know, the evolution cards are making it kind of feel too full. Like you want more utility cards. So you have too many evolutionary lines here that are just taking up too much deck space. Garchomp is quite a good card in my book. That's a cool one. I have the cool Garchomp. I don't have like this crazy rare one with the where it's fighting God or whatever. That'd be cool if I had that. I haven't drawn that one yet. You have 1 energy to attack with Gible, 1 energy to attack with Gabite, and then 1 energy to attack with Garchomp. So you don't even really need to invest it when it's on the bench to already come out swinging with it. You do need 3 energies for the Dragon Claw, but it's like this: if you're turn 1, you put your first energy on the Gabite and evolve it, the Gible, and evolve it to Gabite. So your first attack is doing 30, and then the next turn you put your next energy on to evolve into Garchomp, and your second attack is doing 50. And then for all future turns, you've got your Dragon Claw. So that has a nice curve. You're attacking every turn, and you're doing 30 plus 50, 80 damage across your 2 turns. Meanwhile, if you're going second, you got like 20 plus 30 plus 100. 150 damage across 3 turns. It feels like the curve is very nice in either direction. Garchomp is nice because of its energy requirements. But I think a lot of fighting cards just have very awkward energy requirements, and Garchomp doesn't. So it makes a good ally with a lot of other cards that like having a little bit of energy. Like you can afford in a Garchomp deck to spend a turn to put an energy onto Marshadow. You're not going to feel the opportunity cost of that. You'll appreciate having Marshadow with 1 energy on it in case they get a kill, and you can just come in and nuke something with your Revenge or whatever. So Garchomp is a good card, but these are the wrong allies. That's my summation of this. You need different allies. You want Hitmonlee to get chip shots on stuff before Garchomp comes in. You want Cyrus. Maybe Garchomp and Cyrus have poor synergy, actually, because Garchomp can already just punch things on the bench. So you don't even need Cyrus. You can just have Hitmonlee. Marshadow, Lucario, Hitmonchan, Sudowoodo. These are good allies. These guys all hold hands and work together well. I understand Shaman. I understand Fanpy. But I think they're not correct on this deck. And I don't know if they have good decks at all. Well, Shaman does good decks, but I don't know if Fanpy does. Meant to leave. That one's like a 6. Arceus and Crobat. So we got the new Zubat, new Golbat, new Rotom. I do like Rotom here for the chip shots you're going to be doing on other stuff. I don't like Croagunk and Toxicroak. I don't know what they're doing here. Zubat, Golbat, the other ones I kind of feel are better. What is the other Zubat 10? I don't even remember what the other Zubat is. It's colorless, but I don't remember its damage. The other Golbat is better, I think. I think that one's doing 40 for 1 energy. Because it was previously a fully evolved Pokemon, but now we've got Crobat in the game. I do like Crobat in a dark deck. I like it outside of dark decks too, but I especially like it in dark decks. I like the chip shots we're doing with Rotom. I like the chip shots we're doing with Crobat. These guys require very little energy, which means you can put a lot of energy onto your Arceus. I do like... I don't think Hoot Hoot or Noctowl has any place here. I don't think the regular Arceus has any place here. Croagunk I would swap with another dark type. I don't know what. Darkrai, I guess. I don't know. Weavile. The chip shots of Crobat are very nice for Weavile, and the chip shots for Crobat and Darkrai stack up. So those are very common allies to run together, and they'll just get chip shots after chip shots after chip shots, which is really fun. I've seen Crobat decks with Darkrai do okay. Like, there's certain things that are just very obnoxious to... like, it just gets kind of owned by that strategy. I don't think this is horrible. I think it's a little disorganized, and I think the damage output is a little low. Like, your big hitter is just Arceus. So, you know... I mean, you do have a lot of spare time to put energies on it, because everything here is very energy light. But, I don't know. This deck is okay. This is like a 6 or 7. It's somewhere around there. I don't have that much to say about it. The damage output is a little light. I would have another Crobat. I would have another Arceus EX. I would have some other EX Dark type. And I wouldn't have this Croagunk or this Hoot Hoot. And I'll have more utility cards. And I don't know what else this Town Elder is doing here. Like, what are you going to try and get back? The obvious thing is the Arceus EX, but nothing else you even care about if it dies. Probopass EX. I have seen one Probopass deck that did not use Dialga. And I actually think that that's a real thing. I actually think that people are very much sleeping on that. I almost always see these two paired. I think Dialga is better off building up Arceus than Probopass, but I actually think that you can do a decent job running a Probopass without Dialga setting it up. Like, you can just have low energy Steelmons like Skarmory, and then Probopass still appreciates the spare tools you're going to have when you put 4 tools in your deck for your 2 Skarmories. And you'll have a lot of spare turns with extra energy, so you can just chuck on this guy. The awkward thing is the Nose Pass. Any deck that has Nose Pass is just very awkward because this card is so bad. 10 damage for 1 energy is very unimpressive, and then 3 retreat cost is absolutely cataclysmically bad. You need to be running Leaf. Yeah, I would not run that Nose Pass, but you need to be running Leaf in decks like this so you can just get it out, because you are going to be forced to lead with it. 6, 8. You got 8 basics here. So the chances that your opening hand is going to be 1 or 2 Nose Pass only is actually pretty low, but you'd rather have one of the cheaper to retreat Nose Passes, and then like stuff like Skarmory would be better allies. I think it's not horrible seeing Staraptor in here. I think Staraptor is a really good card, and it's actually not very energy invested if you're running it with Berry, but the problem is Staraptor plus Berry is like 8 energy in your deck, which is quite, or not 8 slots in your deck, which is quite quite a lot of your deck is being devoted to this dumb bird. But you don't need that many other cards for Probopass, you know. This Bronzong, I think it's kind of good. That's too many energies that you're going to be wanting to put on your Nose Pass. Those two have very poor synergy with each other. The Mawile is just a not impressive card in general, although I do appreciate that it's kind of an early game card while you're setting up stuff on the back. But like 70 is not even that much health, and 20 is not that good. I'd rather have something that's doing, it's like Skarmory's doing 50 with a very, very easy activation condition. I'll be having Skarmory in here. I wouldn't have the Bronzong because it's got bad synergy with the Probopass. I'd be looking at other low energy cards that can kind of allow you to build up. Oh, we have another high energy card in here. Like, this is a version of the deck would actually really appreciate a Dialga EX putting energy on stuff because everything is really energy hungry. But I think Dialga EX is not actually that great unless you're putting energy on something like an Arceus, in which case it's pretty good. Dialga, it kind of often dies while you're building up something else, so you need the something else to win. And there aren't that many cards that kind of truly just win like that. Probopass is okay. The damage output it has is not great. It's okay, 90 is not bad. But it's more that it can often get 2 or 3 or 4 attacks off before it's killed because its HP and its defensive unit side effect make it quite difficult to kill. But the problem is, what if the opponent is building up like a Charizard and you kill their Moltres, but then the Charizard comes in and just does 200 and you got full HP and you got your minus 20 damage, but you just die anyway. Like, that kills you even after you use defensive unit, even if you're wearing a cape. That just still kills you because that does 200 damage anyway, and then you're weak to fire. Stuff like that. It's just not an amazing situation for, I don't know, Probopass if something too strong comes in. Of course, Charizard is a very extreme example. It's the strongest card in the game. Adaman. I've never seen anyone use this card. I think it's a little slept on. I think blue was not useless, and I think that this is a better version of blue. But you only see it in steel decks, and most steel decks aren't trying to use it. I think it's not horrible, though. You can use it early game with a Skarmory, you can use it late game with a Probopass. They both have utility. It can be very surprising when the opponent thinks they like budget for being able to kill you and win. And then it's like, oops, because of Adaman, you can no longer kill a Probopass. And then, you know, it gets 2 attacks off when it was only supposed to get 1. That can be very disruptive. But I've barely seen anyone use it. I think this deck is very poorly put together. Everything needs way too much energy. This is not going to work almost ever, I feel. You're going to be able to set up like 1 thing per game. It's like, will this be the game where you set up the Probopass? Will this be the game where you set up the Bronzong? Or will this be the game where you set up the Staraptor? That's just, or the Dialga. That's just really poor synergy, I feel. You need some early game cards here. Or you need some kind of acceleration. Barry, I think I remember being quite impressed with this one. I guess the Buizel Floatzel are just here because I think Barry had a Buizel Floatzel. We got all 3 Berry Abusers in this deck. We only have the 1 Berry. You can run all 3 Berry Abusers together with Grass Energies. It's not bad. I guess this is using Grass Water, because I don't see a way that you can use this and this. I've seen grass water decks before. It's to abuse Irida plus Erica. A lot of grass decks just use water because Leafeon or Execute can put their own grass energies on. But this looks like it's a legit 2-color deck, but that's not a bad 2-color deck because you have the things that need their specific energy type only need one of it. So I think you can get away with it in this particular instance. I would not have the Weasel here because he's forcing you to run an entirely different energy. That's very awkward for a card that's not even amazing. But Heracross for the early game, Snorlax or Staraptor for the late game, all of them not needing that much energy because of Berry lowering the energy cost of stuff. That's quite good. I think this is probably the best of the decks we've looked at. And it could be made a little bit better just by having, I don't know, something else instead of Floatzel. One Berry concept that a lot of people are doing right now is the Snorlax plus Darkrai, which is pretty funny. Snorlax works with any type, of course. I've seen it with Staraptor as well. Heracross is kind of, I don't know. You could run all 3 Berrymons. It's not a horrible concept. I think Snorlax is better. Snorlax and Staraptor are better than Heracross, I think. And Staraptor is comfortably the best of the 3. Snorlax is okay. It's like I heard someone say it was like a Druddigon a little bit, where you're not damaging the opponent unless you put on a Rocky Helmet, but you have an actual offensive threat. Like, you're just sitting there being an early game wall, but if you put even a single energy on Snorlax, you're threatening to do the second energy plus Berry and doing 100 damage at any given moment. And that really, either the opponent has to be vulnerable to it, they have to actually, like, just get owned by the 100 damage hit, or they have to play around it, which can be very unoptimal for them. They can force in things they're okay with losing. That might require retreating and burning extra energies. So I think that the Snorlax is quite a good card. I've completely turned around on it. It's not bad at all. Heracross is okay. Staraptor is really good in my book. I've actually used Staraptor quite a lot, and I think it's a very strong card. The double edge is really good, especially that HP on a stage 1 is, on a 1 knockout point Pokemon is awesome. This one, yeah, the little improvements can be made to this. A second Berry is very obvious. I think the allies are a little bit wrong. You could have some kind of EX Mon in here if you wanted to. A bunch of them would work. Or just some utility Mons or something like that. I mean, considering that all the type Mons, Heracross and Floatzel, could both come out, you could really put literally any card in the game as like an ally here. You know, you could put stuff like Skarmory or Farfetch'd or whatever. It doesn't matter. You could make this into any deck. You could run just Water Mons plus like Irida. And Irida would help you a lot with keeping your Staraptor and your Snorlax healthy. I think that would be a very strong way to do this. Just put like a random water card in here. Who knows? Cyrus plus the Greninja or something like that. Or Starmie. Who knows? Anything. You got freedom with this deck. This deck is pretty good, but it could be made even better. And then we got Myths of Sinnoh. Alright, I'm scared. Okay, we got a lot of cards that I have rare art for. I think this one's just a novelty deck, right? There's too much stupid stuff going on in this deck. First of all, what are we? We're water plus metal. Does it say anywhere? Do I have to try and build one? I don't know how to like look at it like that. It seems to be a water plus metal deck. That's very awkward. I understand water plus metal because that's Palkia and that's Dialga, right? Look at my gold Palkia, by the way. We have Manaphy to put water energy on other stuff, so only having 2 different energy types and having to use Manaphy being able to give you lots more waters for the things that require lots of water, such as literally every card we're looking at. I mean, what am I even talking about? This is just a novelty deck. There's nothing going on here. This is just the entire deck is legendaries. That's the whole point. And for some reason, Regirock didn't get invited because it would require another energy type. So we just have all the other 3. This is just awkward. It's just like, hey, this is just a lineup of legendaries. This isn't even worth talking about. It's bad, okay? Do you need me to say it's bad? We got a Pokedex. If that's not your clue in that this is a bad deck, look at the Pokedex, okay? This card does nothing. It's one of the worst cards in the game. I love we're just got like a random cape and a helmet in there just cause, you know, it's like, you know. To describe very briefly, nothing... I mean, we do have 2 forms of energy acceleration here. We have Dialga and Manaphy, but what if you lead with Dialga and you just get a bunch of water energies? What if you lead with Manaphy and get a bunch of metal energies? Then what? And then what if you got like Manaphy, but then the mons you can put energies on are like Registeel, which doesn't do anything with water energy, or Dialga, which can benefit from one at most. Yeah, this is just very awkward. Again, 3 steals, 3 metal energies. This thing needs, I don't know, 3 of its 4 to be water. It's just not practical. This whole deck is just not practical at all. Most of these cards are very energy hungry. And the chances of leading one of your energy accelerations, you only have 2 in the deck, and they're not even the same energy type. It's just bad. Okay, it's bad. That one's like that was like a 2, and then this one was like a 8 maybe. There you go. I've rated all the new decks. They're not great. They're not horrible, but they're not great. Very easy improvements to all of them could be made. Oh, we knocked it out pretty quick in the end. I think I spent like 13 minutes on the grass one, and then 45 minutes total for the rest of the whole video, so not too bad. Thanks for watching. I'll make another one of these once they make more decks. I don't know.